What we're looking at here is a Chinese national that Ukraine said was captured fighting on the eastern front line. President Zelensky posted the video to Telegram saying Ukrainian forces captured 2 Chinese men fighting for the Russian army in Donetsk. This marks the first time that citizens of the world's second-largest superpower have been found on the front lines. And Zelensky believes there are significantly more of them out there on the battlefield. In this emergency episode of Geopolitics on Tape, we're going to run you through everything we know, what we think it means for the war, and for the world of geopolitics. As of the time of this recording, April the 8th, 2025, what we know is what President Zelensky has shown us and what he's told us. What he's shown us is a video of a wide-eyed and clearly agitated man of Asian appearance in military fatigues that match Russian designs, handcuffed with zip ties. He seems to be recounting a battle, describing what looks like a drone attack. What Zelensky has said is that this man was one of 2 Chinese nationals taken prisoner by his security forces. He said the pair were taking part in combat operations in Donetsk, which is part of Ukrainian territory that Russia occupies. Zelensky added that significantly more Chinese nationals are in the Russian ranks, though he did not say how he knows this. Videos circulating on social media dating back to March do appear to confirm the presence of some Chinese nationals in Ukraine. These men, wearing Russian uniforms and patches, write graffiti in Chinese characters on the walls of this building. Zelensky said he will be asking the Chinese embassy to respond to the news that Chinese nationals have been captured, and he also called for a response from America and Europe, saying it is evidence that Putin does not want peace. So, does this mean that China is now directly involved in the war in Ukraine? In one sense, China has been involved in the war from its origins. We know Putin went to speak with Xi Jinping in Beijing right before it broke out, and while we don't know what they discussed, it's hard to believe the subject didn't come up. After that meeting, the 2 sides declared a no-limits partnership with one another, meaning Xi either endorsed Putin's plan or saw it as no impediment to closer ties. Since the war began, China has supported Russia economically by buying its sanctioned oil and gas, and has filled the gaps left when Western companies withdrew from the country. Beijing has also been supplying the Russian military with key components used to make weapons, and has supplied vehicles for the Russian military to use. In this sense, the news doesn't change much. It shows us that Russia and China have a close partnership and are sharing resources, which we already knew. Crucially, however, all of Beijing's military aid we knew about before this was non-lethal, and the primary purpose of frontline troops is clearly to kill the enemy. And even North Korea, which sent some of its own troops to fight in the war, sent them to fight inside Russia rather than into Russian-occupied parts of Ukraine, which is where these men were found. In this sense, it marks an escalation in the evolving Russia-China relationship and raises fears that China could be involving itself in the conflict more closely. And the more Beijing gets involved, the closer this conflict inches towards a world war. It's important to note that we don't think these men are part of the Chinese military and are more likely to be mercenaries. Western mercenaries are also fighting in Ukraine, and that hasn't sparked fears of an escalation into World War III. But the Chinese state keeps a very close eye on what its citizens get up to, and it's therefore hard to believe that Beijing didn't know what they were doing. One of the key questions will therefore be whether it just didn't care enough to stop them, or whether it actively encouraged them. In the one sense, that wouldn't mean very much. But in the other sense, that could end up being hugely consequential, not just for Ukraine, but for the rest of the world as well.